the Zoom, it is really, really hot. My computer is like I can cook an egg on it.
I know, mine too. Mine too. My computer is so small and thin that it has a really powerful chip, but the chip doesn't operate at like at 100% all the time because it's so small and thin. So when it does start operating really hard, it gets so hot it'll burn my legs. I miss having a desktop. Actually, desktops are so nice. It's sitting beside me, but it's got no camera and no Bluetooth because most desktops don't. Okay, so we'll share this screen here. Everyone's good to record. If you can't, just yell at me and I'll fix you up. So assignment number one solution, we're going to pop this open in VS Code. I also already have previously downloaded. No, I didn't download anything. I need to download some stuff. And that is this CSS HTML stuff here. Okay, so we also have our image not available JPEG, our main CSS, and our sample HTML. So we're going to be breaking apart this sample HTML as necessary, okay? And this is not uncommon. Actually, what's more common in the real world is probably getting a giant JPG or Photoshop files in the real world. You might get like a Photoshop file. This is what the web page is going to look like. And then you need to make it look like that. So the first thing you would normally do is what we did 3 months ago, your HTML and CSS. Now you don't have to do it like this. You could probably do it while you build your React project. That would probably be more normal. But for this case, we're just going to be looking at this assignment.html and the CSS over here. I'm going to crack these both open in VS Code as well, so I have access to them. Okay. And this main CSS here, we can just copy this whole thing. We can pop over to our VS Code and we can stick that in index.css. That's fine. Okay, so now we have our CSS copied. So that's index.css. Remember, we only really need one CSS file, really. If we really wanted to do a good job, we would be splitting this up though, okay, into separate CSS files based on the component, the CSS for the component, okay? Create React app especially is specifically optimized to only bundle together pieces that go together. So it's pretty smart, but we don't have to worry about that. I'm going to take away some of this stuff here. I normally do. Take away these icons, this manifest, this junk. Okay, and this test file. And pop over here to index.js and just clean this up a little bit as well. Okay, and we're going to start working in app.js over here. Now, the first thing we're going to work on is we're going to work on the header. Okay, I guess we should probably talk about the app in general, but I'm thinking top down. So the app, so let's take a look at the app. So the way that people often break down apps, if they look at it and they say, what parts go together? So obviously one component is this whole thing, right? It's the whole thing. It's the containing component, right? And that might be index.js, that might be app, that might be whatever you want to call it, okay? But we do have some sort of container for the whole thing. Now, in this case, that we're going to call it app, then we have each movie, and each movie, I think, is also a component. So this is a component, this is a component, this is a component, right? So we have a movie component, we have a giant component over here, and then we have a header component over here, okay? Now, one of the things I saw a mistake that people made is they make header, so they'd say the whole thing is app, And then inside app is header. And then inside header is movie, right? And it's not a linear structure like that. It's more, that's just a top down, right? We're talking more of a tree, okay? So we need to think more of like a tree structure where we have our application component here, okay? I'm actually just going to whiteboard this thing for 1 second so people get this idea a little bit better, because this has happened a couple times already. Share screen, let's do a whiteboard. Actually, that's fine. So what we end up having here is app at the top, right? And then we have header, and this could be movie. Okay, so we have the app component. Ooh, that's really tiny. Then we have the header. And then we have the movie. This is terrible. Okay, over there. And these are connected. Okay, and these are connected. The movie is not connected to header. Okay, data flows down from here and down from here. Okay, so that's how that's our structure. Did we need another one? Do we need another thing here? Let's see. Nope, 3. Header, movie, app. Yeah. Any questions on that? Does that make sense? Okay. Okay. So that when we look at our assignment, that's kind of what we're going for. So we're going to start here. Okay, but we're going to probably bring in let's bring in HTML kind of for the whole thing, and then let's split it up. Okay, so we'll pop on over to our other VS Code, to our app.js, and then our other VS Code here, which has our HTML, our sample. So we don't need this stuff at the top, okay, but we will need to put that into our index page. We will need to put this style sheet link into our index page. Okay, so over here, sorry, I'm using my Mac hotkeys here. We'll copy this, and we're going to head on over to this other page. And inside this index.html, you're going to want to include this, okay, to get those icons. It's just a heart icon. Okay, and clear this out. Don't need this theme color. Okay, so that's how we include cloud. If we want to include font awesome, just drop them into your index.css. Okay, title if you wanted to, that's all fine. Okay, now we don't need root because root is already there for us, right? Create React app already has the root. Okay, we're going to start with header. So this is what our header looks like. So we're going to copy that, and I'm going to create a new file over here in my source called header.js. Okay, and we're going to import React from React class header extends React component. Add a render function on there because we need one. And paste this. There we go. We need a return in here. Return. We'll put that up inside.
Hey, John.
Yep.
Can you give me access to record? My Zoom just got cancelled.
Yep. Sure thing. Let's see. There you go, sir. Okay. So this is fine. Let's just update class to class name. Okay, class to class name, no problem. And then let's head on over to our app.js and let's import that and use it. Okay, so import header from header, and we probably should export it if we don't want to have errors. Okay, and then we can actually just use it. And that could be our whole app for now, right? It doesn't do anything. It just looks a certain way. Okay, so let's get that started. NPM. And while that loads up, we'll start bringing some more stuff. Okay, once that loads up, we'll just see the header. We won't see any of this other stuff. Okay, but we can start putting some more stuff out here, some more HTML. So it's not uncommon that, like, again, you're going to have this template type of stuff. So we're going to have this stuff here, these 4 lines, title list, title, movies, wrapper. So this is going to be in here, okay? Below header, okay? And this is going to be part of our movies list. Okay, this is where our movies list starts. And then inside here is our first movie. Okay, I believe that's where we get our first movie. Right, we get our first movie, it's got an image. Okay, so why don't we copy this? Thank you. Why don't we copy this? Copy. And let's make a movie. New folder, new file. We'll make a movie component. Oh, some people are asking me, can I call this JSX? Yeah, sure, no problem. And actually it changes it to a little React symbol. It's not necessary anymore, depending on what you're working in. But so you might find a lot of tutorials that use .jsx. It's fine. It's just JavaScript. If you're using something specifically that requires you to write your extensions as JSX, that's fine, right? It's because we're writing JSX. Oh, that's good. Okay, so we're going to paste this in. And again, it's not going to make any difference whether or not we use the extension JS or JSX here. Webpack, which is the super complicated gulp alternative that we're using to compile this stuff or transpile this stuff is totally fine with either. Okay, so we're going to bring this movie into the movies component or the movie component. Okay, and I'm just going to put one movie in here. I'm going to hard code it, and we're going to get this one movie and this header out. It's going to have no functionality, but it's going to look kind of correct. Okay, so let's do import React from React. Okay, and we'll say class. Now, if you want to write all your components as class components, that's fine. If you want to do them as stateless functional components, because you know it's going to be stateless, that's fine too. In the example, in the instructions, I kind of told you which ones have state and which ones don't. And this one does not. So this one is actually just a functional component. So we can say export default function, and this is the movie component. And we will be receiving props at some point in time. So I'll put that there for now. It won't error if we don't receive props. Remember, in JavaScript, arguments, parameters, they're optional. Optional in the sense that it won't break if we don't include it. Maybe because it might break inside the function, but JavaScript won't say, hey, you said I take parameters and you didn't give me a parameter. I'm going to break. It won't do that, right? We know that. And there we go. Cool. All right. So we have our movie component here. We have our header component over here. And we're going to import that movie component. So we're just like setting up these connections. I think this is a really good way to do it. Just get something working. Okay, and then we can start adding in the functionality after that. And then the movie's going to go in right here.
You might want to change the CSS file's name index.
Oh, actually, I don't need that. Why?
Is it in the index.js?
Yeah. Yeah. It's over there already. Actually, so this file I don't even need. App.css, don't even need it, right? Because I already have that stuff in index.css. So remember, there's like one higher level above what we're working in, and that's index.js and index.css. These are like the loaders, right? So we actually don't need this CSS file because I put everything in the other CSS file. And
just out of curiosity, if the index CSS is connected to index.js and app is connected to app.js, which one overrides which? App?
No, they would get built in order. So it would be the imports get added to the bottom, right? And so if you think about how you write CSS, the stuff at the bottom takes precedence.
Yeah.
So if index was included or imported after, or then it would take precedence. So app.css takes precedence over index.css, assuming they have some of the same stuff. Really good question. Okay, and then we're going to close all these tags here at the bottom. It's these 3 div tags that I just need to close here. So close that div. Close this div. And close this div. Okay, and then I'm not allowed to return this stuff because I have a header and like this body. And so I'm going to need to, this header and then this body. So I'm going to need to return it all in one little fragment there. Okay. There we go. And that should work. There we go. Ta-da. And we have something working. Okay. So nothing's actually working, but it looks correct. That's something. So let's start in our header. Okay, let's start in our header over here. We're going to get our header to start working with this input. Okay, we're going to start making this input functional. So 1, we're going to make our input controlled. And 2, on submit, we're going to go search for movies. Okay, so first thing I'm going to do, I want to control this input. So I have this header component. This means my header component has some state. Only the state it needs to control this input. That's it. Okay, so it's going to look like this. State equals, I don't know, input field, or I put query. Okay, and this is going to be the query, the thing that you're searching for. Okay, and it's going to be empty string to start, right? Because this value is the value that's going to be put in here. You see how we have this value down here is empty string? Well, this is actually going to be placed down here, right? So instead of it being the string empty string, we're going to say actually it's this dot state dot query, which has the starting value of empty string. So actually nothing's changed. The only difference is we also need an onChange event. So that way, when someone types a letter into it, we're actually, whenever someone types something into it, we're actually capturing that event, right? So onChange, we want to capture what they're typing in. So I don't know what you want to call it. Capture query. Sure. Okay. OnChange capture this dot capture query. Or probably update. Probably better to update search. That's better. Okay. So now we'll write a function, the update search. And the starting to get a little bit long here. So we're just going to do a little bit of magic to make it all fit nicely. So onChange, update search. So we're going to have an update search method. Okay. And we're going to take in E, the event, because we need this because the event has a value on it for this input. Okay. The event.target is this input. So we need to capture that value. So E.target, okay, is the value that we're capturing. Okay, E.target.value. And all we're going to say is this.set state. And we're not using the functional set state because we do not care what was there before. We're overriding E dot. So we're saying query is equal to E.target.value. And that's it. So we're doing two things, right? We're updating this. So when someone types A into this form, it pushes A into here. When state changes, it then copies that A back into this form. Okay, so now this form is not working. There we go. Okay, so now I can type in. I could have typed in before, but I didn't have any state class name. I have to fix these, my DOM stuff. Okay, I didn't have any state. Now, if I look in my, I'm going to zoom in a little bit. It's all broken. This is some bad CSS that I've got going on here. If I look into my components and I look at the header component, see I have state now. So I actually have that query. Great. Okay. What am I going to do with that query? Nothing right now, but we can deal with that right now, actually. What I need to do with that is I'm going to be using that to perform a search of the movie database, right? So, but when do I perform a search? I perform a search when someone submits this form, okay? Now, the search is not going to happen in the header. The search needs to happen, if you remember my diagram, above it, because that search with the search is going to get the movies, and that data is going to flow downwards, okay? Like water, it's going to flow down. So we have to do the search up here in the app. Now, which means we need a pretty big change over here, okay? We're going to need to change this to a stateful component. So we're going to have to make it a class. The other thing that we're going to have to do is we're going to have to add some state and add some methods to go perform that search. So essentially what's going to happen here is header is going to alert app, hey, go run a search, go get these movies. Here is the query that you need to use. That's what's going to happen. That's what header's job is, okay? Header doesn't do the search. Header just lets its parent, anyone who's its parent, know, hey, you have to go do a search. Then its parent app will go do a search, get some movies, and the data will flow down the mountain, okay? So let's set that up. Let's set up the class component. So class app, extends React component. Okay, and we have our render function here. And we're just going to drop this in there. Okay, so that's good. Now we need to have a state. Now the state here, if this is what's getting the movies, this is probably what we should put in state. We should probably put movies in this state. Okay, so it will be going to get movies from the movie database, and we will be putting it in here. Now, if you didn't want to do this yet, that's fine. If you want to go get the movies first and then write these 3 lines, that's fine too. Right? I'm doing a little bit out of order because I'm just trying to fill this stuff out. Okay, so we have, this is where we're going to be keeping our movies in this array of state, because we're getting a bunch of movies. We're not just getting one movie. Eventually, this line 20, this is going to be us looping over all the movies and printing them out. Okay, that's essentially what we're doing. Now, we have a state with movies. We need to go get some movies. Get movies from API? Sure. And we know that we're going to need to accept a query in here. Okay, because we're getting movies based on a query, based on some string that the person typed in that input, right? We're getting it from this. So that needs to be dynamic. We can't hard code that into our API. I'm just going to pop on over to the solution over here. Because I have my URL already. Just going to steal that. So we are going to make a fetch to the API, the movie database, based on this query, my API key, and anything else. Okay, and we're going to have a, let's move that to the side. Then, okay. And over here, we're going to do rest.json. And over here, we're going to do JSON console.log JSON. Okay. So is this working yet? No. I have an app with a state to hold movies. I have a function to go get movies, but nothing's hooked up yet. And I have a query. I have a header that has a query. But what I need is when someone submits this form, I need this to trigger that search over there. So I don't have access to that search over here, right? I can't see it. So in order to see it, it needs to be provided to me, the header, me being the header, right? So in order to see this function, it needs to be provided to me, and it can be provided to me via props. Okay, so all we're going to say is on, now again, on whatever you want to call it is fine. On get movies from API equals this dot get movies from API. So now we provide it, we're passing it down. Remember, no parentheses here because we're passing it. No parentheses when we're passing. Only parentheses when we're invoking. And then over here, now we have that inside here as props. This dot props dot on get movies. This dot props dot on get movies from API. Okay, so we can say on submit equals this dot props dot on get movies from API. The problem is it accepts a parameter query. It accepts that query. So I need to put parentheses on it, right? And where is that query? That is in this dot state dot query. Cool. But we've got another problem. I can't do this. I cannot put parentheses on it because I'm not the one who's calling it. Form will call it when it gets submitted. It shouldn't get called immediately when this component loads, right? So we need to wrap that in an anonymous function. Well, wait, we got another problem. The extra problem is I need to cancel this form from submitting, right? I need to prevent default because if I let this form actually submit, it's going to refresh my page and everything's going to break. So what I should be doing here is I should probably make a little function out of it, okay? Get movies. So we'll make a little function called get movies. We'll accept E as the event. Okay. And we're going to move this piece here, this dot props dot on get movies from API. We're going to move that into here. And instead of wrapping an anonymous function, we don't need to because this is that function. It's not an anonymous function anymore. Now it's just a function. We're going to say on submit, call that function, this dot get movies. It's going to provide E, and now we can say E dot prevent default. We can make that call that we needed to the parent to say, hey, you, go do your search thing now. Here's your query. Okay, so we're able to pass that query up. And we should probably do one more thing, which is update this state back to empty string, because that was one of the requirements. So once we're done making that search and passing that information, okay, then that state for this input gets reset. Okay, so what should happen now is when I come and I refresh this and I perform a search, it should actually perform a search and output a bunch of data to my console, because it's actually going to make that function call, which is going to search the movie database, which is then going to console log this data. And there we go. Now I've got some other problems, but this is a plugin problem with Chrome. Be careful sometimes. Your Chrome plugins can cause you some serious bugs. Okay, I've had days where I've been like trying to figure out why things aren't working, and it's actually just a Chrome plugin I have installed. Tried a different browser or tried incognito mode, and it worked fine. And you can see the results I get here, right? So these are the results from the movie database. Now, next stage, we should probably just take these results and just output data. Just output these movies. So let's get these into state, and then let's get these movies being printed. Okay, so header, we're done. No more header, all done with header. Any questions on header?
I changed the query into e target name, and I put the name as the same thing as that because in our previous class you told us that might be better later on. I don't know why yet.
Why is this better?
Hmm.
This is better because it's flexible. Now I can reuse this and say update field. And if I had multiple fields, I can just set all their on changes to update field, update field, update field. And instead of having one function for each input, I can just have one function for all the inputs, right? So if I had 10 inputs, I don't need 10 functions. Now, if I had 10 inputs, I only need one function. So this is technically better, but unnecessary, but it's better, yeah. Okay, cool. Now we're back at app. Okay. We're going to be working in line 15 here. Okay, line 15 is where we're going to be capturing this movie stuff. And honestly, all I'm going to do is, while I don't, oh, we got a little bit of a problem here. Oh. Huh? Oh yeah, my thing doesn't have, my input doesn't have a name, so e.target.name doesn't work. You have to give it a name. So let's get byte, okay? And you'll see, really important, when you look at the values that are returned from here, I don't want to just jam the whole thing in, right? We still have all those lessons that we've been learning up till now are still important. So working with the API, getting that data, looking at it, interpreting it, understanding it, all that stuff is still important. Think of whenever you're unsure, think of Winnipeg Transit, right? How complicated that data was, how you cannot just accept it the way it is. You need to look at it. So make sure you look at it. We're looking at results here. This is what we care about. Right now, I don't care about this other stuff, right? I just want the results. So I'm just going to take these results, which are movies essentially, and jam it right into that, right into the state. I'm just going to say this.set state movies JSON.present. Okay, that's it. And this has to be an object. So that's going to put all that data, all this data that we had into movies. So now we have 20 movies with a bunch of excessive data that we don't need, but it's easy for me and it's easy for this assignment. In the real world, you'd probably only pick the pieces that you care about. Okay. I don't care what was in data in the state before. So I'm not using the set state where we're using prev state. Right? I don't need that because I don't care what was there. I'm destroying everything that was there. Every time we do a new search, bang, state is gone. Or the movies that were in state are gone, right? The movies that are in state are gone, not the entire state. This doesn't delete everything else that's in state. This only destroys the movies that were in state, okay? And now we have a bunch of movies that are in state, which means I can actually loop through these things. I can say this.state.movies.map, and we can say movie, and put some of these. And now I've got data. I've got data that I can pass down to my movie component, and I can display these movies. So I'm going to pass it down to a prop, the movie prop. And the movie is the movie, right? So this movie is being passed down. This is an object. It is the movie, an object that represents a movie. It has a poster, it has a name, it has a plot. I don't actually know if it has those things. It has some different information than what I just specified, but it's got all that information there, just different property names. So we're going to pass all that down. And we're going to head on over to movie, and we're going to clean this up, okay? One of the things that we need to do is we need to change all these classes to class names. So I'm going to say find, And I'm going to say everywhere that says class, replace it with class name. And I'm going to say replace all. Pow. One shot. So if you haven't done that yet, there's a shortcut for this. I haven't made the shortcut yet, but there's a replace all shortcut. Okay. So that's a nice way of doing it. So over here, coming in through props, we have props.movie. So we have props.movie.title. So already I've got something going. Okay, if I come over here and I said, fight, 12 movies with the same posters, the same information, but different titles. Okay, we're on our way. Now we just need to do that with the rest of them. Okay, so our this is our vote total. I can't remember what this is called. I'm going to go.
Average.
What is it?
Vote underline average.
Props dot vote underscore average. And this is, what's plot?
John?
Yeah.
It'll be props.movie.vote average.
Thank you.
And plot is overview.
Overview. Props.movie.overview. And then we won't deal with this toggle right now. Okay. And then poster. Now you see we have the poster here. All we need to do is change this value right here. And this is the poster path. Now, this is what I mentioned at 9:27 yesterday. I said, you're going to need to remember how to do this. Source. Source is JavaScript with some of this, plus some of this. Props.movie.poster. Okay, this plus this. It's the poster path only has the ending, only has that that file name. It doesn't have the fully qualified URL. It only has the file name. So you need to provide it with all the rest of the URL. And what do we get here? Holy cow. Like, we are way ahead of the game, right? Very good. Very, very good. Couple of problems. We got some movies without posters. That's easy to fix. Let's fix that. So we're going to pop on over to our downloads over here where we have our A1 incomplete and this image not available JPEG. I'm going to copy that over, and I'm actually, I need to assignment 1 solution, and let's explore.exe. Pop this open. And I'm going to put that in the public directory right here. Okay. So I put that in the public directory. I just dropped it in there. It's the easiest thing to do. It's not necessarily the correct thing to do, but it's easy. And that's what I'm going for right now. Okay. We are making some choices along the way that may not be the best. Now, the big question is, does this movie have a poster? Okay. Now, one of the things that we often see we put this return immediately below this function. But there's actually this giant gap in here where we can write any JavaScript that we want. Okay. Now, you may have done it a little bit differently. You may have put it in line here, and that's fine. But this is what I would do. So I would say, does this equal no? Okay, we're asking if the poster path is null, because some of the posters, as we saw, come up empty. And so we're checking to see if the poster path is null. If it is, so this is our ternary. So going back to JavaScript basics, this is the perfect spot for a ternary when we're determining whether or not what we should set this. We know poster path is going to be set to something. It's just, is it going to be set to image? Is it image not available? .jpeg? Or is it set to this? That is the question. Okay, so it's set to one of these things. And there we go. So remember, before here, we can still, and we could, if we wanted to, we can still put in, poster path could be JSX. Okay, JSX in Java, in React is a first class citizen, which means we can return JSX from functions. We can set this to JSX if we want, but all we're actually doing is setting it to a string. So we're actually going to just drop that in here in poster path. So it's either going to be image not available if poster path is null, or it's going to be the correct poster path. Okay. And then we're going to use it. And if we come back over here and we say type, there we go. Any questions on that? We're almost done. We're going to need to put a key on this movie. And we're going to say movie.id. And that should, where is this coming from? Line 27. Oh, all these class names. Okay. So now we can do type. Cannot read property type. Again, it's my problem. Don't worry about that. Okay. Now the last piece is managing these hearts. Okay. I am missing a little bit from this sample here. And that is data toggle true. So this data toggled property or attribute is what's determining whether or not the hearts show up as hearts. So we put in false over there, okay? And none of the movies have the heart, right? They're not hearted. You put in true and they're all hearted. So this needs to be dynamic. So we need to provide some information for this. Okay, so we need to capture and update that. And this is going to be very simple. Okay, the way I'm choosing to do it is I'm choosing marked movies to create a new list of, now this could be hearted movies or loved movies or whatever you want to call it. The idea here is I'm creating a new list of movies that I'm marking. And the reason why I'm making it separate from this set of movies is because this set of movies gets destroyed every time I perform a new search. And if I marked any movies, then that data would be lost. It'd be gone, because I'm not persisting that information anywhere. I'm not passing it back to the movie database and saying, hey, these are my hearted movies. So the movie database doesn't know the next time it gives me Spider-Man 3 that I hearted it, okay? It just gives me Spider-Man 3. And that data that I put on it is gone. So now, and that's in this case. Not every case is going to be the same. And this is why we're software developers. We solve problems. We identify what we need. We figure out how to do it. and then we go ahead and do it. It's not just about applying patterns over and over and over again, okay? If that was the case, then the computers can program themselves. So we need to we're going to track the marked movies. Now, I'm not going to track the entire movie. All I'm going to track is the ID of the movies that I liked. That's it. Just a super simple array of numbers. And those numbers are going to correspond to the movie ID. So all I'm going to have to do when I'm looking at a movie is I'm simply going to ask, is the movie ID inside this list of marked movies? If the movie ID is in here, then I hearted it. If it's not, then I did it. And that's it. And when I toggle that heart, it's going to add the movie ID or it's going to remove the movie ID. That's it. So let's write that piece. Adding the movie ID and removing the movie ID from this array. And that's actually fairly simple. Okay. We're going to say toggle movie. Toggle movie. And we're going to get a movie. So it's going to provide us with an entire movie. Okay, but all we care about is really the ID. And we're going to ask first. We're going to say this. First of all, we need the previous state because we're going to need to ask, is this movie ID? Because the big question is, if this movie ID is already in state and we're toggling it, we need to remove it. If it's not in state and we're toggling it, it needs to be added, right? So we need to ask it first, is it in state or is it not in state? And the only guarantee that we can have, which means if we need to know the previous state to do this, we need to know the previous state, which means we know which set state we need. This dot set state. It's the one that has prev state because we're going to ask prev state. What do you have that movie in you? So we're going to say, and remember, this is a function. We can do anything we want in here. If prev state dot marked movies dot includes movie dot ID, then remove it. Otherwise, add it, right? If it already has that movie ID inside, remove it because we're toggling it. We're doing the opposite, okay? So we're just going to say, we remember the goal of set state is to return a new state, an updated state. So we're going to return in both cases. One of them is going to be the filter. The other one is going to be the add. The filter, remember, looks like this. The new state, marked movies, colon, and the new state is going to be the previous state minus that movie, which is previous state, marked movies, filter, movie ID, so keep all the movies except for the one that matches this ID. So remove that, will remove this movie. And again, we're talking about patterns. Yes, this is the same pattern as before, right? Now, I'm not doing exactly the same stuff, but it's a pattern. There is a pattern inside. And then if I want to add it, I need to say this guy. Previous state.marked movies, and we're just going to add the extra one. So we're either going to add it, and again, same pattern as before. We're either going to add it or we're removing it, and that's toggle. That's what toggle does. Who's calling this? Movie is calling this. Movie needs to have access to this because when we click on that heart, we're going to call toggle movie. So we're going to pass it down through props on toggle movie. This.toggle movie. And down here in the movie JS, we're going to put it on this div, or we're going to put on this div, probably this div. On click props dot toggle movie, and we're going to need to pass the movie, which means we're going to need to wrap this thing in an anonymous function. Okay, that's great. So we refresh this, and movie is not defined, and this is props.movie. And what happens is when we click on this, it won't flash yet, it won't turn on yet, but we're capturing it in state. Actually, we are running into an error. Cannot read property type. Toggle movie is not a function. Oh, thank you. Yeah. Okay, so we'll be able to capture it in state and we'll be able to see it. Click, click, click. So if I go and I look at my components and I look at the app state, you can see I have these 3 movies marked. And if I click on that movie, it should remove it. And you see it updated and it's gone. Click, and it's gone. Now, if I search for another movie, this piece of state will get destroyed, but this piece of state will not. And that's how it holds that memory, right? So you see this got replaced, but this did not. So the last piece is, the big question is, how do I show the heart? And it's all right here, data toggled false. I need to ask it, I need to provide it with this array of movies, essentially. So I'm gonna pass down the favorite, let's call them favorite movies. And it's an array of this dot marked movies. So I'm just going to pass that whole array in. And then down here, I'm just going to ask.
John?
Yeah.
Dot state.
Dot state. Dot
Thank you. Thank you. And I'm just going to ask props dot favorite movies includes props.movie.id, right? The movie that we're talking about, that we're looking at right here, that we're printing out, it has a movie ID, and all we're doing is we're asking it if it includes it in there. And if it does, it will return true. If it doesn't, it will return false. And data toggled takes a true or false to display that heart. Okay, so now, heart, 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 okay, frozen, heart. We go back to Fight Club, and those hearts are still around. Untoggle, untoggle. And there you have it. That was pretty fast, but it's recorded, so you can watch it again. Unfortunately, I don't have time for questions right now. So here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to say, write down any of your questions, think about it, research it. Okay, I'll post this solution right now.
Sir,
Yeah.
I think there should be one more little part.
What's that?
Like when there's no movie searched, the movie should be like.
In all honesty, there should be 20 more little parts, right? But I have limitations in what I'm going to ask you to do in a 2-day assignment, right? Like there should be a lot more to this, but I always scale these things down. I agree. Yeah, if you don't search for a movie, you just hit enter, kaboom, right? Totally. But again, it's just I can only ask you to do so many things. So yeah, that's why I leave stuff like that out. It's not that I'm careless. It's just that I'm really targeting certain things, and I have limitations for what I'm asking you to do.
That one empty search, you can really play with putting the required.
No. I didn't mean the empty search. I mean
I know what you mean. I know what you mean about the movie thing.
Yeah. There's a little part of the movie on the second part. Like
this part? Oh.
Yeah, the movie. There's a movie over there, but if you don't search anything, there should not be a movie display over there. Like the
H1 in the title div.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Did I say that in my assignment?
No.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Again, there should be a lot of stuff, right? But okay, so I can't post this right now, but I will shortly. I'm going to do it in my next meeting. They can't see what I'm doing. So I'm going to commit this and push it in my next meeting. I'll post this. Take a look on the assignment in about 15 minutes, or maybe even less than that. The URL should be there if you want to take a look over it. I'm going to be back at 11 o'clock. Okay. And we'll look at the next stuff then. So I'll see you then. Okay.